Have you ever finally got everything you thought you wanted, only to discover you still couldn't relax? Have you ever looked around your life and wondered, why am I still anxious? Why am I still waiting for something to go wrong? Why do I still feel unsafe when nothing is actually wrong? If that's you, buddy, stay with me. Because by the end of this documentary, you'll understand exactly why it happens, why it isn't weakness, why it isn't failure, why the thing causing it may actually be the very thing that helped you survive. Today, I'm married to Mrs. Adams III. We've built a wonderful life together. My children, my stepdaughter, family dinners, holidays, laughter, ordinary moments that once felt impossible to imagine. And here's the strange thing, buddy. When life finally became peaceful, I didn't trust it, because before this life came one of the most difficult chapters of my journey. What I discovered there would eventually explain why millions of people struggle to enjoy happiness. But I didn't understand that at the time. You see, buddy, most people think losing everything is the hardest part. It isn't. Because often, you're not grieving the things you've lost. You're grieving the person you used to be. At one point I had direction, certainty, plans, responsibilities, a future I could clearly see, knew who I was, and then life started stripping those things away one by one. Redundancies, uncertainty, financial pressure, divorce, setbacks that forced me to question everything I thought I knew about myself. That barn wasn't just somewhere I slept. It became the place where every label I'd used to define myself disappeared. No successful estate agent, no title, no status, no husband, no version of me left to hide behind. Just Scott. And honestly, buddy, that was terrifying. Most people think the barn taught me how to survive. It didn't. I'd already spent years surviving. Barn forced me to ask a much harder question. Who am I when the struggle is gone? At the time, I didn't realize how important that question would become, because eventually life started improving. Opportunities appeared, hope returned, new chapters began, but something strange happened. Even when things improved, my mind kept preparing for disaster. I kept looking for problems, expecting setbacks, waiting for bad news, as though happiness couldn't be trusted. Have you ever done that? Have you ever found yourself unable to relax, unable to enjoy success, unable to trust peace? If you have, what I'm about to explain may completely change how you see yourself, because the thing that's making you uncomfortable today may be the exact thing that helped you survive yesterday. Years later, I discovered there was a neurological reason for everything I was experiencing. Your brain is designed to learn from repetition. Every setback, every disappointment, every betrayal, every moment of uncertainty leaves evidence. And over time, your brain builds a model of the world based on what it repeatedly experiences. And if life has repeatedly taught you that people leave, plans collapse, jobs disappear, and certainty can't be trusted, the brain adapts, not to make you miserable, but to keep you alive. What I hadn't realized yet was that the same survival system that protected me during my darkest days would eventually become the thing stopping me from fully enjoying my brightest ones. Because here's the problem, buddy. Once survival becomes familiar, peace starts feeling unfamiliar. And what most people never realize is this: human beings will often choose familiar pain over unfamiliar peace, even when peace is exactly what they've been fighting for. And in the next chapter, we're going to uncover the hidden addiction that keeps millions of people trapped in survival mode. Long after the danger has passed, why letting go of struggle can sometimes feel like losing part of yourself, and how understanding one simple truth about the human brain changed everything I thought I knew about happiness, resilience, and rebuilding a life worth living. Most people think they're trying to escape pain, but that's only half the story, because once you've spent enough years living inside struggle, struggle starts feeling normal, and normal feels safe. Here's the strange thing, buddy. Nobody wakes up one morning and decides to sabotage their own happiness. Nobody chooses anxiety, Nobody chooses stress. Nobody chooses self-doubt. But the human brain isn't designed to make you happy. It's designed to keep you alive. Brain learns through repetition, not intention. Whatever gets repeated becomes familiar, and whatever becomes familiar starts feeling safe, even when it isn't. If criticism was repeated, your brain learned criticism. If uncertainty was repeated, your brain learned uncertainty. If rejection was repeated, your brain learned rejection. If chaos was repeated, your brain learned chaos. And this is where so many people get confused, because they think they're broken. They think there's something wrong with them, when often they're simply running an old survival program that no longer serves them. Circumstances may have changed, but your nervous system hasn't updated yet. Your life may be different, but your survival software is still running in the background. Years after the barn, years after rebuilding, years after finding love again, years after life started becoming everything I'd hoped it could be, I still found myself waiting for bad news. Nothing was wrong. Nobody was leaving. Nobody was hurting me. Life was finally becoming the thing I'd spent years fighting to rebuild. But part of me still didn't trust it. Because when you've lived through enough storms, sunshine can start feeling suspicious. Have you ever caught yourself waiting for something to go wrong, even when everything seemed okay? Have you ever struggled to enjoy a good moment because part of you didn't trust it would last? If you have, what I'm about to explain may completely change the way you see yourself. The brain developed a threat detection system thousands of years ago. Its job isn't to make you feel peaceful. Its job is to scan for danger, identify threats, and keep you alive. More often a pathway is used, the stronger it becomes. And if you've spent years anticipating problems, your brain becomes incredibly efficient at finding them. And this is where most people get trapped, buddy, because eventually the danger disappears, but the pattern remains. But here's the part that changed everything for me. Because once I understood how the brain creates these patterns, I discovered something even more powerful. The brain can change them too. And in the next chapter, we're going to uncover the science of neuroplasticity, why your identity is far more flexible than you've been led to believe, and how two simple words can begin rewiring years of fear, doubt, anxiety, and other people's control over your life. Now here's where things get really interesting, buddy, because most people spend their entire lives believing they're stuck with the brain they've got, stuck with the fears they've got, stuck with the habits they've got, stuck with the identity they've got, but that's simply not true. Neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to adapt, change, and rewire itself throughout your life, which means your future doesn't have to be controlled by your past. Every repeated thought strengthens a pathway, every repeated behavior reinforces a pattern, and every repeated emotional response becomes easier for the brain to access. Think about that for a moment, buddy, because if your brain can change, your confidence can change, your self-worth can change, your identity can change, and your future can change too. Because people don't realize they're living inside patterns they learned years ago, patterns that once protected them, but are now limiting them. That's why I've spoken so much about two simple words over the last few years. So what? Because people think, so what is about not caring, but that's not what it's really about. It's about reclaiming control. Because for years I allowed other people's opinions to dictate how I felt, what risks I took, what dreams I pursued, and what version of myself I allowed the world to see. Every time you interrupt an old pattern, the brain gets an opportunity to build a new one. And that's exactly how neuroplasticity works, buddy. Repetition, 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 not perfection. The more often you choose a different response, the stronger that new pathway becomes. And eventually, what once felt difficult starts becoming automatic. Every time you say, so what, you're reminding yourself that you don't need everybody's approval. Every time you say, so what, you're reminding yourself that your worth isn't determined by someone else's opinion. Every time you say, so what, You're teaching your nervous system that disagreement isn't danger, criticism isn't danger, rejection isn't danger. And every time you say, "So what?" you're reinforcing a new identity, and an identity built on self-trust instead of approval. Because rebuilding your life isn't really about changing your circumstances. It's about changing the relationship you have with yourself. For years, I thought confidence came first, then I'd take action, but I had it completely backwards. Action creates evidence. Evidence creates belief. Belief creates confidence. The man who lived in this barn wasn't confident. He wasn't certain. He wasn't motivated every day. He just kept moving, one promise at a time, one lesson at a time, one difficult season at a time. If you'd met me in that barn, you wouldn't have believed this life was possible. Honestly, buddy, neither would I. Because when you're in the middle of the storm, it's hard to imagine sunshine. But let me tell you something, buddy. This isn't the end of your story either. The fact you're still here, the fact you're still trying, the fact you're still searching for answers means the story is still being written. You are not broken, you are not weak, you are not behind, and you are certainly not finished. So let me leave you with a question, buddy. What would happen if you stopped preparing for disaster and started preparing for possibility instead? What would your life look like if peace no longer felt dangerous? And if you're rebuilding your life too, subscribe and join us, because every week we tackle the things nobody talks about. Confidence after divorce, life after failure, resilience, childhood trauma, anxiety, self-worth, emotional recovery, and how to rebuild a life you can genuinely be proud of. One promise, one lesson, and one day at a time. The goal was never to survive forever. The goal was to learn how to live again.